The Olympic Village has been declared uninhabitable. No shock here from Francis or Jason, but recent reports have came out and said that only 12 of the 31 Olympic athletes' village buildings have been passed for safety inspection. So, according to thorough details, when checking out the habitat that they have to stay in, water's dripping down the side, toilets aren't flushing properly, just general logistics of a household that you'd expect to run smoothly. Like, we're not expecting the gloriousness of a five-star hotel here, right? Which, by the way, is often assumed when you're taking into account athletes, when you're blinded by how much superstar athletes get all this treatment. Like, Olympic athletes, aside from the very few that are of superstar name value, like the Usain Bolts of the world and these athletes that have such celebrity attachment to them, general, everyday Olympic athletes, they're not treated with that same level of superstar treatment. Like, they're going in to these Olympic villages and they're getting standard housing equipment and standard habitat that is expected to house them, provide them with a comfortable environment where they can rest. This isn't even providing that. This, according to many reports, is rather disgusting. It doesn't have the general plumbing of most people's houses, so it's causing some concern, but that isn't the only thing that's causing concern, right? So,
Article number two,
right? The Rio Mail didn't exactly put out the fire, which is the concerns of the state of affairs in the Olympic Village. He kind of made fun of the Australians. Like, well, not kind of, he did. So, in a quotation, when the Australians stated that they were not going to live in the Olympic Village because they were simply not going to put up with it, he stated, and I quote, "We want them to feel at home here," Edward Pius said. "I almost feel like putting a kangaroo to jump up and down in front of their building."
Okay. We have to get a couple. So, for one, if I'm being honest, pretty funny. Although rude, although very rude, very funny. On top of that, I don't think the Rio Mayor, I take that back. If the Rio Mayor wants to put a kangaroo outside there, he has to fight the kangaroo. Yeah. Because I think you can find out quickly. Have you ever seen the videos, first of all, how fast kangaroos are?
Yes.
There's a great video, and I wish I could do it off the top of my head. It's a Vine of people on like they're like Jeep wrangling through parts of Australia, and they're like, "Oh, there's a kangaroo. Wow, it's pretty cool. Oh, it's kind of catching up to us." They're going like 45 miles. Keep going, holy shit, there's a... And then there's like the videos of like kangaroos drop kicking people.
Yeah, they've got
but that's slightly besides the point, because no, the Rio Mayor should not be saying that, yeah, we can just put a kangaroo outside. That's like saying, if for the Americans, we'll keep a bald eagle in your room. Or if you're Chinese, well, here's a panda. Like, it's the same thing, even though panda bears are dope. I would love my own panda bear. So back to the point of the hotels and that living situation.
Yeah.
I think somewhere in one of those articles, those hotel structures are $1 billion structure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I might not know everything about real estate. I do know for $1 billion, you should be able to make sure the toilet's flush.
Exactly.
You shouldn't have to be, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down type of development.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking at. The walls are leaking, electrical shortages. And here's the thing. I know that athletes get put up on a pedestal, literally, given the Olympics, and
get it.
Pedestal. And you would think that, well, they have it so easy already for some of them, the prominent ones, ones with major sponsorships and money. But to a certain extent, you have to make sure that they can charge their cell phones. They should not ever have to worry about little inconveniences when they have been training for years for their one shot at glory. Right? This is not an every year thing. The Olympics aren't every year. That would be like telling a World Cup team, "Yeah, no, guys, I'm so sorry this isn't going to work out, but you got to sleep on air mattresses just for like 2 days, even though you have a game tomorrow."
Yeah.
Like, that's going to affect everything. Rest, as you know as an athlete, is equally as important as training and game day itself.
And it's all about the mental side as well. You don't want to be thinking about the fact that your toilet isn't flushing or there's puddles in your apartment when you're trying to recuperate mentally, physically. Yeah, if there's a kangaroo there, that should be fine. But like the Australian Olympic Committee responded, and they basically said, "We do not need kangaroos. We need plumbers to account for the many puddles found in the apartments." That's just one of the problems, it says, including gas problems, electricity and plumbing. And the Australians just won't put up for it. Now, many other countries have, for some reason, just seemed to accept it, and apparently they're moving in
some
to that environment.
Right? Yeah, the Dutch said no?
Yeah, so I think the Australian kind of started the trickle-down effect. I think more countries are like, this is simply not an environment that we want to be staying in. A lot of these athletes that aren't of that superstar name, they train week in, week out without little compensation for their one shot to serve their country in the Olympics. So the least that they deserve is a comfortable environment where they can recuperate and prepare to serve their country in the Olympics. And again, we have talked about this off camera. The Olympics, the name that goes along with it, it's of such, it holds this sense of pristine that because you're serving your country, you're fighting for something that's further surpassing like just a salary or what your own means to live. It's actually to be associated with the country and do your country proud. So a lot of these athletes at times will often just keep their mouth shut and be like, all right, well, let's just do it because we've got to win for our country. But this is not that time. This is a time where you have to stand up and say, this is simply disgraceful. You had a blueprint right there on the World Cup that showcased that this country wasn't ready to host such a major event. And then you just go ahead and just still stick with the same guidelines, still stick with the same deadlines for the Olympics. And now you're paying the consequences. Well, you're not paying the consequences, the Olympic Committee, because their pockets will still be full. But it's the athletes that are competing in this competition who are going to pay the major consequence of this if they aren't able to perform to the highest of their ability. And by the way, even if they don't, say someone who's Australian doesn't perform the best of their ability, they're not going to turn around and go, I think it was because they just weren't comfortable in their environment. No, they'll be like, they just failed. They flopped. So they're going to be the one that has to take the heat.
They
you know
do.
What I mean? Which is unfortunate.
They take the heat. Very good points all around, Mr. Maxwell.
Thanks.
To kind of wrap it up, some other quick Olympic news hits. MMA fighter was, jiu-jitsu fighter was
New Zealand
kidnapped.
jiu-jitsu athlete Jason Lee said on Facebook that he was kidnapped by armed men in military police uniforms and forced to withdraw cash from 2 separate ATMs. And aside from the fact that jiu-jitsu is not an Olympic sport, that doesn't take away from the fact that this is still another something else that isn't exactly positive about the Olympics.
It's very serious, but it's also what you can think is to kind of bring this full circle back to the Rio Mare. It would be one of those things where it's like, you see, like, we have the Australian swim team, 1 kangaroo, and a track and field Australian runner kidnapped. We want $50,000 for the kangaroo, $75,000 each for the swimmers. We will hurt the kangaroo. By the way, I think one of the wildest ones, though, is there's only one group of people who are actually ready and prepared for the Olympics. And do you know who that is? That would be the drug dealers, because they have Rio Olympics 2016 branded cocaine on the market. Just like when they saw, like, there's a cocaine called Steph Curry.
So you brand it with what's going on in the current times.
Somebody tweeted at me,
keep up with the trend.
At least the drug dealers are ready.
Yeah, of course they are. They're firmly.
Tourists are coming in. They're going to make a killing.
No, and that's like, it's almost like a sitcom at this point where we have kidnapping, we have disgraceful.
More of a soap opera.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's like General Hospital.
True, exactly. Well, it kind of encompasses all of that into one, and it's laughable, but it's so serious. But you can't blame us for trying to look at some form of lighter note, because how many stories have we done on this? How many dark stories have we done? I think it must be like 5 or 6 where we've tried to kind of portray early on that this should never have went ahead. But of course, we can only shout from the rooftops so much, but it's never going to get through the clogged ears full of, what could be fit in ears? Dollars? Quarters? Nickels?
Wax. Your wax.
No wax.
Comment below.